Good afternoon, Mark. Welcome.
Thanks, Brian.
You've been to a few of these CTIA events over the years. Is it right you were at the very first CTIA show?
The very first CTIA show. It was in a third of a ballroom, and I think there were about 60 or 70 people there. So this has come a long ways.
Indeed it has.
I hate to say, I'm approaching my 40th year in the industry, and I go to our new hire orientations, and I say that, and they're like, oh my God, what a dinosaur. But, it's been very, very gratifying to see this from the absolute beginning, to see what it's become.
Through all the Gs.
Yeah, before I was there before 1G was commercial.
So I've read a lot about Samsung's leadership in 5G, industry leader in patents, started working with the technology in 2009. How has the company achieved this position in this grand new frontier?
Well, I think you sort of hit on it there, right? We've been at this for a long time, 14 years on 5G, and people so far have talked about how long it takes to just simply for the licensing and the deployment process. Well, there is an R&D process that comes way before that, and so I think that's why you've heard a lot, because we've been at it a long time. And if you think about how transformational 5G is across so many industries, Samsung very early on determined, we need to be very active in this space, because you may or may not know this, but we make semiconductors, we make memory, we make displays as small as go on your phone or as big as the ones you see on the Super Bowl. We build, obviously, smartphones and appliances and all those things, and we have been working hard at doing networks. And so 5G kind of hits across all of those things, besides other unrelated. For example, we manufacture mRNA vaccines because precise manufacturing is what that's all about. So 5G is very pervasive for us. It's very important. And so I think that's going quite well for our industry. It's in the execution phase. We're deploying a lot of network. But I think a lot of what Meredith and Slayton said is so true. While that's going on, there are three big industry topics, I believe, right now. The first is spectrum, as has been mentioned. Second is absolutely closing the digital divide. And the third is, how do we architect networks when you have this insatiable demand from consumers and enterprises to just create and move more and more data every day?
So let's drill down on each of those a little bit, and we'll start with the spectrum pipeline. Why is that so important to the industry and to Samsung?
Well, since the day I started in this, the spectrum's the lifeblood of our industry, right?
Right.
And I think this industry has demonstrated that all the spectrum we've been assigned, we've used. And on the network infrastructure side, we constantly figure out how to make that even more and more efficient. How do we take what we have and get the most out of it? But there's no doubt we need more. And so, like some of the other folks said, we really urge that the FCC's authority to run spectrum auctions gets reinstated as soon as possible.
Super important, and obviously a historic gap in that auction authority that's been so important in promoting all the way through 1G throughout your career, really, in terms of the pipeline.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the digital divide in the last panel, spent some time talking about the millions of folks, particularly in rural America, who are still unconnected. What needs to happen to close that digital divide once and for all?
Well, I guess Washington, D.C., so there's lots of different opinions, but I don't think there's a person in this room that would disagree that every single American needs high-quality, affordable internet. And there are a lot of programs. I applaud the work that's been done, and there's been some discussion about BEAD as one example of that. So that program's there. What I think has to happen now is we need to implement.
Yep.
Right? We need to get those programs implemented. We start, deploying more network. Absolutely. And I think also it's very interesting because there's a lot of discussion about fiber.
Yes.
Fiber is critical to this. But you know what? Fixed wireless access at the end of that fiber can bring this service to so many more households so much faster. And that's why you see, even with the programs that Verizon and T-Mobile and US Cellular have, they're adding more new consumer broadband subscribers every quarter than the entire rest of consumer broadband companies combined.
Another thing making headlines is OpenRAN and virtual RAN. You want to touch a little bit on how those fit into this larger picture?
Sure. Well, this is what I was saying before about there's this insatiable appetite. And enterprises and consumers are just creating huge amounts of data, and that number is growing astronomically every day. The networks we have today are very well architected, they're very resilient, but we can foresee that new architectures are going to be necessary, architectures that have more flexibility in them. And so this move to more software-based networks and OpenRAN, it's something that started in the last few years. I personally think it's an industrial megatrend. This is a change like you've seen in other industries, and it's inevitable that we'll move to highly software-based and open networks. There are some companies who are very much in the front of that. They traditionally are the leaders. And there's others that are a little more deliberate. But I believe eventually everybody gets to that sort of an architecture.
You mentioned the fixed wireless access use case earlier. What are some of the other use cases you see on the horizon that are sort of going to be market moving or industry moving for the people in this audience and in Washington?
Yeah, the elusive 5G use case, right? Well, and absolutely fixed wireless. We've always, when we were first deploying, we deployed our first 5G network with Verizon in Sacramento, and all we were talking about together was fixed wireless access. It took a little time for that to develop, but now that is there. I think, beyond that, and everybody in this room probably can imagine some use cases. I'd say the most important thing we've done is we built a platform. We've built a platform upon which people can innovate. Right? If you look at 4G created trillions of dollars of economic value. And it did it by enabling people to take a mobile device and have a high quality connection to, it's what created a mobile social media industry, right? There are things like that in 5G as well. So other than that, I generally believe what most of the industry believes, that the enterprise use cases will tend to lead. There's a couple of big ones out there on the consumer side, maybe. Gaming is a no-brainer, right? Video streaming is a no-brainer, but I think enterprise will still lead. We see a lot going on now in healthcare, and interestingly, in this field of robotics. It's gotten very, very interesting recently.
And a tad scary. We talked a little bit about one of these use cases earlier about the robotic dog that might be guarding your farm, which did terrify me. But when you think about that, Samsung has talked about bringing calm to the connected device world. How will Samsung bring calm to the connected device world of your farm, and will it include the robotic dog, or what does that look like exactly?
Yeah, interestingly, here's a good fact for you, Tim. In the US, the average household has 22 connected devices today. We love that because Samsung's in 72% of every US household, and so we feel that that's a great way to go forward. But I look at my own situation. It's 10-acre little farm that I try and take care of, and it's made me realize a lot of things about the power of technology, because I, like people who run huge farms, I try and do stuff. It's really hard. I try to use technology to get more done around the farm,
Right.
But I can't find people to work and help, even if you can pay for them. And then I think about that person on a giant farm trying to do this is in the exact same situation. So that's why you see companies like John Deere investing close to $1 billion in these kind of things to really enable that. And I think this is just going to proliferate everywhere.
Well, thank you for your vision of the future. Thank you for your leadership. And on that note, thank you, Mark, and thank you all of you for a wonderful conversation this afternoon.
Good to see you. Thanks.